Hello and welcome everyone to Biotensegrity Tea Party number 37, Tensegrity Wiki with our special guest Lionel Wolberger. Hi Lionel, you're coming from Jerusalem?
That's right, and good to be here. It's Wolberger, by the way.
Wolberger. Oh, I should have checked that before we went live. And with my fellow co-host Graham Scarr from Nottingham. Hi Graham.
Hello Chris, hello everybody.
And fellow co-host Susan Lowell de Solorzano, coming to you from Washington, D.C. Hello, Susan.
Hi, Chris. Hi, everyone. Welcome.
We're so happy that you are all here with us today. So we're really excited to have Lionel here today. And Lionel, we are going to ask you to open the show with a toast, please.
So I'm really pleased to be here. The Biotensegrity group is doing wonderful work promoting tensegrity and enabling us all to move forward. So today I wanted to toast Susan Babiuk, is that her name? Because I believe it's her birthday, and she's
Lisa.
One of our specials. Lisa, thank you.
Lisa Babiuk.
Lisa Babiuk, who is one of our sponsors, and it's her birthday. So I'm drinking my tea toast to Lisa. Happy birthday. May you have a wonderful year ahead. And thank you and all our other sponsors.
Thank you, Lionel.
Happy birthday, Lisa.
Birthday, Lisa.
Birthday.
And
Thanks, everyone.
Now, before we go on to our sponsors, I want to also say hello to, keep yourself unmuted, Lisa, because I want to also say hello to the rest of our Biotensegrity Tea Party team. And of course, Lisa is part of that team from St. Albert. Hi, Lisa.
Hi,
And
Chris. Hi, everyone.
she's also one of our sponsors, Rachel Tudor from Tumwater. Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Rachel brings us the wonderful newsletters. Couldn't do it without you, Rachel. I was so happy when you jumped on board. And Mariana Barreto, our tech mama. Hi, Mariana.
Hi there. Happy to help.
So at this point, we're going to move on to our sponsors. Lionel, do you have the ability to share your screen? And then we'll
Yes.
pass it over to Graham to let you know our sponsors. While we're doing that, it would be a great time to start shutting off your video cameras for the audience, because it just gives a better view for our YouTube audience. Well, okay. And those of you on YouTube, please hop on board and say hello. Susan's going to be there monitoring the chat box.
Great. Well, our Biotensegrity Party is an all-volunteer production of the Stephen M. Levin Biotensegrity Archive, and made possible in part through the generous support of our wonderful sponsors. And this week we'll start with Artifact Pro of Madrid, Spain, where you can find wonderfully constructed anatomical models. And Artifact Pro also offers a generous discount coupon to our Zoom participants. So there we are, some real live feedback to see what they're all about. Okay, then we can move on to Handspring Publishing in East Lothian, Scotland. We have a wide range of authors and books suitable for movement and manual therapy professionals. They're also offering a discount coupon to all those on the Biotensegrity Archive mailing list and our Zoom participants. Handspring also produce a regular newsletter entitled Springboard, which you can join from their website, and which provides details of their ongoing webinar series, Move to Learn, hosted by Elizabeth Larkham. And you can see here a wide variety of books, and they're constantly producing new ones all the time. I don't know how they keep up with it. So get on their website, handspringpublishing.com. Then we have the Fascia Hub, who brought us the pelvis, whole day on the pelvis about a week ago, I think it was. And they also organised the British Fascial Symposium. And we'll be organising another event in January. So keep posted and we'll let you have more details. Then we can move on to Integrated Biotensegrity, which is organised in Alberta, Canada, And they held a one-day course at the beginning of November, and we'll be holding a Q&A session based on that sometime this month, which I haven't got the date in front of me, but it's quite close. I think it's next week. That's with Lisa Babiak, Paul Thornley, and Rachel Tudor. So check out them. And last but not least, and most importantly, Embodied by Tensegrity, run by Chris Clancy, based in Vancouver, British Columbia, who provide an excellent resource for those of you looking to learn more about Tensegrity. And Embodied by Tensegrity is offering a special discount to all of those you attending here on the Zoom. So check out the chat box for a link to great savings on Susan's upcoming course, Everything Moves, Experiential by Tensegrity. This is your chance to learn more about Tensegrity directly from Susan. And for those of you on YouTube, then get on the archive, Tensegrity archive mailing list and sign up for the newsletter for this, and you'll hear more about Embodied by Tensegrity. So thank you to all our sponsors.
Thank you, Graham and Lionel. So today we're very, very excited to bring you Lionel. Tell me your last name again.
Wolberger.
Wolberger. And Lionel is really the creator of Tensegrity Wiki, which for a long time was one of the few online resources available. And now as Tensegrity and Biotensegrity grows, of course, Tensegrity Wiki is growing. So Lionel is the leading online curator of Tensegrity information. In addition to the Tensegrity Wiki, he runs groups on Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and more. A true polymath, Lionel has a PhD in ethnomusicology, works in the computer industry, and has authored several patents. And Susan and I were lucky enough to jump on board with Lionel for a preview of today's event. And we're so happy and excited for you to share, Lionel. Do you want to share your screen and start now? And while you're sharing, Susan, would you like to jump on board and tell everybody a little bit more about Tensegrity Wiki? I know you have spent a ton of time there, as have so many people here.
Well, thank you. You know, when I was trying to write Everything Moves, it was absolutely an indispensable resource for me. And I was just so grateful that it was there. I returned to it time and again, particularly Lionel's done such a fabulous job just delineating the history and presenting it, for which I do credit him in Everything Moves. And I still go back to it all the time. And I was there this morning trying to contribute to it. So that's the other wonderful thing about it is Lionel's just so open about saying, come on, come one, come all, join the fray, and let's create this really wonderful online resource that we ourselves and others can use. So it's a wonderful wiki experience. And I highly recommend that people jump in and follow Lionel's instructions today. Thanks.
And that's one of the things that Lionel's going to show us today is how to do that, Susan. So without further ado, I'm going to shut my camera off here and welcome Lionel.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Susan. So welcome to a Tensegrity tour. We'll see stories, pictures, and how-tos. This is the agenda. I'll give this welcome. I'll tell about Tensegrity Wiki. I'll give you some highlights. Then the center of the conversation will be how to do things. I'm going to actually show you for 20 minutes in the middle. Then we'll go back to the highlights because that's the most fun. And then at the end, what I've learned. And we'll have a Q&A. So what is Tensegrity Wiki? Thank you very much, Susan, for that introduction. It's an encyclopedia of Tensegrity. It's 10 years old with over 300 articles and 1,000 images. It's the only online resource that covers Tensegrity in its entirety with biotensegrity, sculpture, home furnishing, cellular biology, robotics, philosophical explorations, artworks, and much, much more. It connects to resources with millions of views. It has thousands of followers. and it's curated by myself, Lionel Wolberger. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I thought I would just put these logos on. I was uniquely, I think, positioned to create the wiki because of my strong background in academia and industry. So in industry, as was mentioned, I work in computer science. I've worked at Cisco. I was in an IBM startup accelerator, currently with UserWay. I worked for News Corporation for many years in secure video, and I lead engineering teams. So I'm a computer scientist, and I can do that based on my background in physics and mathematics, which began at Cornell University. But here's where things get interesting, because I was actually at Cornell to study music and physics. And it was in my music composition lessons that Buckminster Fuller's works were suggested to me in the late 70s. My teacher then was David Borden, and he suggested that I look at Buckminster Fuller's work for ideas of structure, because David knew John Cage, who was very close to Fuller. Well, that began a lifelong fascination with Fuller's work. I ended up writing a song, which is recorded on Smithsonian Folkways and sold by the Smithsonian Institute. And when I went on to get my doctorate at Wesleyan in anthropology, I actually chose Wesleyan because it had people there who were close to Fuller and who had studied with him. So with these legs in physics and mathematics and science, as well as music, I had the broad perspective to engage with tensegrity in a new way. So this is the Wikipedia article on tensegrity. Now, Wikipedia, as you may know, is edited by whoever comes in to edit. Anybody can click and change things. Well, I was on a mail list, and I started to notice that tensegrity is an ephemeral pastime. Most tensegrities are temporary structures, and there are reasons for that, which I'm going to talk about. But I was on one mail list, and actually somebody in the Biotensegrity community, although I'm not sure it was even called that back then, Phil Earnhardt, we were communicating by listserv. That's how we did things. And I believe it was Gerald de Jong was sharing some details about the math. And there was a very intense discussion of what are the best materials. And Phil wrote a simple email. He wrote, "Is anyone capturing all this?" Now, I'm a bit of an archivist. I'm going to just open a browser to, I have had the privilege to know many people who work with Fuller, and some of them are no longer with us, like Vyoma Keel. He's an Indian architect. So when Vyoma Keel passed away, I had collaborated with him on a deep investigation into the nature of not just tensegrity, but all of Fuller's concepts of form. And Vyoma was a Hindu guru. And when he passed away, I had from his home his archives delivered to my home, and I maintain his online presence. The same with Loretta Lawrence. So she wrote the book Becoming Bucky Fuller, Becoming. And when let me just get that again. She concluded, she did very important work into looking into the roots of where did Buckminster Fuller get his insights. So like this Becoming Bucky and Memory of Loretta Lawrence, that's my handiwork. I made that. I inherited her archive and continue her studies by talking to Buckminster Fuller's family. Lisi, the daughter of his mother's sister, as well as Buckminster Fuller's daughter and son. And I've continued the research into what exactly drove this man. So these led me to read Phil's email, who said, "Is anybody writing this down?" And I said, well, I can do that. And I opened a wiki for tensegrity, and it's called Tensegrity Wiki. It grew quickly because there was a perception there was a need to capture everything. And because of who I am, I feel I was the right person to create a really broad tent to capture everything that could happen and would happen with in the broad sphere of tensegrity. So it is my privilege to present it to. I've in fact never presented it in this detail. So let's take a tour first, because the most fun to me is what's in it. So here's a wonderful Tensegrity that was built by the University of Tokyo by an architecture class. And I believe I've done the work of opening all these pages in advance to make things go quickly. Here's the page in the wiki. They named it for some reason 99 failures. And the struts, as you can see, are actually metallic plates. And as we've mentioned, these are temporary. It went up and it went down, but the wiki is a perfect place. Students of the project uploaded their photos to the wiki and they're all here. So if somebody in future wants to make a project similar, they can see how it was made, how the plates were made out of stainless steel and how they were woven together. The Underwood Pavilion was another beautiful temporary pavilion that was constructed by the University of it skips my mind. It should be here. This is the photos, but notice they've uploaded all the drawings and plans of the pavilion so they can be found in future by somebody else who wants to make a structure of this type. It was the university project, and if we just click to read about the design and creation, see this page. See, because the wiki can have multiple pages dedicated to any particular creation. Here's the details. So the Underwood Pavilion was a result of a digital design build studio taught by Reether With at Ball State University. The arch. This arch is a wonderful creation by one of the most important figures in Tensegrity, Kenneth Snelson. The page dedicated to the arch is actually an example of why Tensegrity Wiki is the important resource that it is, because it slowly collects all kinds of people's arches, including this one just made out of sticks and paper. I function as the curator and editor. So every morning I wake up and I could see people have added things, and I just go in and edit them for English and for style. So there's a consistency of style across the wiki. But everyone on this call, you are all, as you're going to see in the middle of this presentation, welcome to contribute, and I'm going to show you how. The Warnow Tower was a temporary structure put up in, let's see, the tallest one ever deployed. Look at that. It was in the gardening fair at Rostock, Germany. The Oramber's works are quite intricate. They are a design house that was dedicated to dynamical and tensegrity structures, and the tensegrity here is supplied by a continuous membrane, a very interesting form. The hammock was a temporary craze, and that's part of the fun of curating the encyclopedia. The hammock caused the server of Tensegrity to get 10 times the amount of traffic that ever got, and it led to some costs, because this fellow built a hammock. And one reason why the Tensegrity Wiki became the trusted place where people will trust it with its materials is, as you see, we always attribute everything. So for example, right here, WV posted his hammock design to here in August 2010. He wrote, and then we just quote him. We put his video of making it. And this hammock page just went through the roof, and all kinds of hammocks were built for a while. And then that kind of stopped. I'll do a couple more, a little more quickly. Quilpa Bridges is in Brisbane. I actually call this a structure inspired by Tensegrity because it actually is not structured with Tensegrity. It's just using Tensegrity design for the poles that are above. And notice we made a paragraph, is Quilpa Bridge a Tensegrity structure? Because again, the wiki is able to host all types of dialogue and all types of information. Here, I actually recall when somebody posted Happy Pontist's writing, the Happy Pontist and emailed us and says, I wrote that, and that's my writing. And we said, well, we'll link to it and we'll cite you and we'll drive traffic to you. And so we're linked. Let's see if his post is still there, because in my experience, many of these projects there, it's still there. So the Happy Pontist is bridge, little known word. He wrote a long post saying, hey, nice bridge, but it's not a Tensegrity. And let's go a few more on our grand tour. This was one of my favorites just because it is a true Tensegrity, and I don't mean to be particular, but it's in the sense of it is completely self-structured by Tensegrity. If you lift it up, it will still be the shape that it's in. This was a very often architecture schools make pavilions. That's what they call the temporary structure. So this was a lightweight pavilion with a Tensegrity ring and tensile fabric. And what was also interesting about this was that it was a in the shape of a hyperbolic saddle. Now here, I just want to take an aside for a minute on this grand tour to show you that Tensegrity Wiki is more than the wiki. Because Tensegrity Wiki is a leg into the unruly world of social media, then I need to follow it through all its appearances. So here I've opened, and here you could see this is a LinkedIn page on Tensegrity where I follow if people post things on LinkedIn. This is Reddit, which I'm not that good at, but there is some traffic here on Tensegrity. This is Scribe. Scribe is very convenient. For a long time, we were encouraging, and we managed to get up here all the PDFs that relate to Tensegrity. So it's kind of one place, one bookshelf where you can find all these related PDFs. The blog is where I personally wrote things I didn't feel were quite ready for the Tensegrity, because very wacky things can happen. Like, look at this. And here there was an umbrella. I thought it was so creative, but I wasn't sure I wanted to open a page on umbrellas. So I simply documented it in the blog. So these people had made this beautiful ring Tensegrity at their campus. We put that into the wiki, or I believe they did. And then as part of this endeavor, they made lights. And then this student, just as a prank or as for fun, she made an umbrella, but it is the first umbrella Tensegrity. So I thought that's worth a blog post. There's also a Twitter account, which I thank Susan for waking up the tweets on Tensegrity. I think single-handedly, she increased the Twitter traffic. There's a SlideShare where for a while we put up all the PowerPoints. I don't see that happening much anymore. Pinterest is very active now in Tensegrity. And every day, look, there's 140,000 pins associated with Tensegrity Wiki. And that's the grand tour. So why don't we move on to the next portion of our presentation, which is how to add your own. Okay, so this will be a how-to, and I could pause here though. Why don't I pause and just see if are there any questions so far, any comments? Should I check the chat when I do that?
Rachel, you've been watching the chat. Do you want to unmute and let us know?
No, not so far. We're good.
Okay, I will pipe in before you move on to the next one that I'm really happy you also shared all the social media things, because we didn't cover that earlier, and it's quite something.
Great. In some sense, I had time for these things more when I was at Cisco, and so the things really grew during that period. Right now, the last year or two, I was quite busy. And also, as Susan knows, our host shut down. So we had to move hosts, which was quite a bit of work. But now we're ready for a new phase of popularity. So why don't we show you how to add your own? Okay, so let me clear off my screen. And I think the best way to show you is just to do it. So the Lego craze was what woke up Tensegrity recently. Now, the Lego is a very simple Tensegrity. It's, as I've mentioned before, Tensegrities that are very compelling to me are the ones that totally self-structure. And the Lego don't often achieve that level of self-structuring. This one, if you tilt it, I have a feeling it would fall over. But it's still a arrangement of tension and compression in a way that radically isolates the tension and compression and achieves the magic of Tensegrity, which is a magic of lightness. So as I've mentioned, I've been hard pressed to keep up lately. So the article on Lego is really not yet to my liking. So let's take a look at it and improve it. And by doing that, I can show you how to use the wiki. So first of all, you have a choice of logging in or not logging in. I recommend that you do log in because then your changes can be tracked under your name, and it makes it easier for me to get in touch with you. Sometimes I've come to the wiki and I do curate and make sure that all pages conform to the kind of open and readable style of the wiki and that everything is attributed. And sometimes I come in and I do want to change things, and I hate to change things without the permission of the author. But if it's an anonymous change, I don't have anyone to contact. So you log in, so you press login. And if you're not yet a user, by the way, the host that we chose is also a good cause. It's called Mirahis, and they're funding it. So actually, Mirahis Wiki, they're dedicated to posting wikis that are in the public interest. There they are. It's an open source project that offers media wiki, media, forgetting the name for a moment, but it's the name of the software that runs it. So Mirahis is our host. So when you log in, you're actually creating an identity on Mirahis, and you can join Tensegrity. It's quite easy. So I enter my username, Tensegrity Wiki. And as I mentioned, you can also edit. You know what? I'm going to first edit anonymously to show you that that's also possible. So here, I'm looking at this article now, and I remember where I left off. So I had tacked in, I personally looked at the thousands of Lego models. And by the way, some of them have millions of views on YouTube. And I thought, how are we going to preserve this and keep this as a body of practice for future people that become interested in Tensegrity? Because in case I haven't spelled it out in so many words, the Tensegrity Wiki, that day that Phil said, is anybody writing this down? What he was really saying was that when we build tensegrities, we are solving problems. And as I've pointed out, most tensegrity work is temporary. All the works published on Tensegrity to date are from a single person's point of view. So we have Skelton's book, which is wonderful for the engineering of Tensegrity. We have Pugh's book, which is wonderful for Pugh's interpretation of how we should categorize it. There's Motro's book, there's Snelson's book, but each of these books are about their view. In Tensegrity Wiki, we have a chance to collect all the different views. So I sorted them into these categories. It's kind of made sense to me, but notice how there's not much in each one. So let's now add. So motorized and dynamic, well, that's a fun one. In addition to the basic Lego Tensegrity structure, electrical powered motors are added to the upper or lower part, but there's no photo. Now photos are what make it, the Tensegrity Wiki so much fun. So we go to the photos page, which is how to upload a image. You do that on the image loading page. Since I didn't log in, I don't actually see it. So let's just go to Mirahis, upload an image. Okay. You do it through the editor. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing screen for one moment so I can get out my password and log in. And as I'm doing that, I'm going to tell you the steps that I'm going to show you. So I'm going to go to the images page. Now, this is rather awkward. Those of us who are accustomed to social media, everything's so easy these days. You just click access my photos, you upload a photo to here and share to there. But this wiki is a bit more requiring attribution. So we force you, if you're going to upload a photo, to tell us where you got it from, and who it belongs to. Because as I told you, that's the way to preserve the wiki as a kind of safe space and a place that people feel they can trust with their materials. It's not there to take, your things. It's there to preserve them in an archive and provide access and pointers to your things. So I'm now going to log in. I'm going to add the photo, as I mentioned, and then add the text.
Lionel, are you able to show us that on your, share your screen again and show us? Please?
Sure. As soon as I'm done logging in, you'll see that.
Oh, okay. I thought you were doing that now. My apologies.
Yeah. I just didn't want to lose my password.
No,
So
I
just
agree.
once.
Rachel's writing, love the honoring of credit where it's due. So do I, Rachel. And just this whole sharing, archiving, and bringing together the many different viewpoints, which is really a lasting contribution.
Yeah, and
Wonderful.
I'll say, this is Susan talking, that I'm hoping June Kwok puts up her Tensegrity poetry. I don't know if you've seen it, Lionel, but it's really fabulous.
I have not, and that's a perfect, it's a perfect example of the types of things that we really want in the wiki, and we can make a home for it next to the more rigorous and engineering types of things. Susan, because I'm having a bit of an issue logging in, could you just speak about your journey, how you found the wiki and how you found what you were looking for? And as soon as I'm logged in, I'll share screen again.
Yeah, and also we have a question. Can but if you're concentrating on logging in, you probably don't want a question, but I'll let you know. I mean, you'll let us know when you're ready for that. But I don't remember how I found it. I just remember that back in 2008, when I became aware of Tensegrity, I then just started hunting down everything I could find. And so it must have been when it was fairly new that I first bumped into it. But I don't remember the day. But I have to say, it's been about a 5-year project working on this book. And to be rooted in the history was just of such great value to me, because I hadn't understood it in the way that I now do. And so I just would encourage everyone to look at the history, because these things don't come from nowhere. And, you know, we're going all the way back to the 1850s with the invention of Froebelian kindergartens, and you know, which, and then the Bauhaus and Jorgensen's work, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, getting to talk to Joris Sills in Latvia on the telephone. None of that would have happened for me if it wasn't for the Tensegrity Wiki. So thank you, Lionel.
Sure. And thank you for taking the time there. It was I'm now logged in. So if you look up here, it says Tensegrity, because that's the name of my username. It would say Susan if you were Susan, or it would just say your login name here. And now whatever changes I made are tracked so I can talk to you about them in case I want to edit them. So as I told you, we're going to now edit here. I mentioned the motorized dynamic entries and how interesting those were. So I click edit, and it's that simple. I'm now in the editor. Now wikis have, basically you can type. And so I'm going to upload a photo. So I already was on my Instagram and I saw some photos that I had collected, and I'll show you the ones that I could choose from. So here in my local file system, I have these 2 photos. They're both pretty good. So I just want to upload both of them. And here's the name. It was IdraCore. See, so below are 2 images that IdraCore uploaded to Instagram. Okay, and I'm not going to save the change yet because I have to upload the file. So I go here. This is upload file. The link was on the lower left. And I go into that same folder that I just showed you, which is right here. And I simply select the file that I want and double click. So now the file has loaded and it says the file already exists. So I uploaded it somebody else has uploaded it to the wiki. So you're allowed to change it here, but I don't really want to change it. So I can now just search for it because this is the file that I want. So I'll just click up here and I'll look for this file.
Lionel, this is great because this will live on YouTube. So when our audience and others who come across the Biotensegrity Tea Party video are ready and have something to contribute, they can keep referring back in case they need to,
Excellent.
or we can. I know I would need to refer back.
Yeah, and we decided that this would be a how-to video. So if you want to skip this middle section to the end, we're going to get back to the tour and the philosophy, but we're going to stick to the details here. So this file is already in the wiki, so I don't have to upload it again. So all I have to do is cite it. So as I mentioned, wikis have their own language. So I have a help file that I keep to tell me exactly how to cite an image. I'm going to open that file now and share it with you. It's called markup language, where you add a few extra characters to show that the image is indeed a image, and you give some information about it. The simplest markup is on YouTube's. YouTube markups are really simple. You don't have to look up anything except the ID of the YouTube. Images are a little more complex, so I will open that help file and show it to you right now. So here we go. All right, now I don't want to scare people off. I want to keep it as simple as possible, but I'll be happy to share my help file, which looks like this. So there are all kinds of special links that can be used. This is how you can format things as needed. This is how you make levels. You write equal signs. This is how you do bullets. Here's how you do a link. Here's general. Here's how you upload a video, and here's images. Okay, so to do an image, all you need to do is write the name of it and do a caption. You see, and then it's got all these choices, which I noted because they were useful to me. But we'll use the most simple form, this one. So this double bracket, so I copy this, I'm going to put it in here, and then I'm going to put the name of the image right there. So I've uploaded the file. Here's the name of the image, and I'm going to put the image name right in there. And then all these others are optional, so I can even leave these out. When I'm done with my edit, I simply click here. I write down what the edit is, where it says summary. So I'm writing adding an image of a dynamic structure, and save changes. Once you do that, your change is saved forever in the wiki. And as I've said, we have a commitment to preserving these things. So you're adding your work to a community that is committed to preserving things. Now notice how this image is rather large while these are smaller. So there are ways to make it smaller, but that's the kind of curating that I'm happy to do later. So let's now see how you do a video. So here's a video. If I click edit, if you're ever puzzled how to do something, just edit and you'll see how someone else did it. So here you can see YouTube and close YouTube. You see that? So I'm going to click cancel. And let's find a video of another video that interests us. And I'll show you how easy it is to add it. So again, we're still on the Lego page. There were so many Lego videos. It was very hard to choose, but let's just find one that we like. So I go into YouTube and I just search for a video. Let's say Lego Tensegrity explained. How about that? It'd be nice to add an explainer to our page. Look, here's a physics teacher explaining it. Now, you open the video, you say, this video I would indeed like on the page. I'm going to get an advertisement here, which you can ignore. But what's important is we now have the link. This is the ID number of the video. So I go back to my page And I'm going to add now a video. It's an explainer video. So why don't I put it in the overview section?
Lionel,
Yes.
so can I get you to jump back and show us a little more slowly where you got the link from?
Sure. Thank you so much for. So when you open a YouTube, any YouTube, the system gives each YouTube a string of unreadable letters that identifies it to the YouTube system. It says V equals and then this string. Every YouTube will have this. So that's the little bit that I picked off for uploading to YouTube. Thanks so much.
Thank
Please
you.
continue to
So
do that.
it's a little
Susan.
bit after the equal sign.
Yes, after the equals.
Thanks so much.
So then I go into the overview and I thought, let's put an overview right here. So click edit. I'm now editing this section. And as I keep mentioning, we like to give credit. So who did this? What's his name there? It is Louis Matheson. This is great. So let's just copy this and go into the wiki now and say, Louis Matheson, a physics teacher and YouTuber at Physics Online, explained the science behind the Lego Tensegrity sculptures. That's good enough. We don't have to say defied gravity. Now I need that little video link, which I've lost because I went and did something else, but I can just find it again. It's easy. I'll just go back to the page. And this is the easiest way to use the wiki, which is imitate what another page did. If you like how that looks, and that's a good way to do it. So here's a video that I like how it looks. So I'll click edit here. That shows me the markup code. There it is. It just says YouTube. So now I'm going to cancel this because I don't want to change this page by accident. And now I'm going in here. I click, see, I pasted the YouTube, but this is what I'm going to change now. I go back to the video, I pick out that code number right there. I go into my page, paste it in, and we're done. Now, pardon me for repeating the point over and over, but we really like to be generous with our credit. So this was hosted by Beyond the Brick as well. So they deserve a bit of credit there too. So I'll just add that. This video was posted by, what was their name?
Beyond the Brick.
Beyond the Brick, great. By Beyond the Brick. And we can give whatever link that is and just leave that the way it is. That's it. So now right here, I added an explainer video. Sorry. And these notes you make are really for me because I will come in. There was one unfortunate period a few years back where every morning I woke up and on many pages there were pictures of toothpaste. I never figured out who was doing that, but that was an edit that we took out. It was just toothpaste. Anyway, so that now you see it. There it is. People love pictures in the wiki, but as you see, there's a bit of overhead to it. So in a sense, I regret that, but if you have the patience, it's worth it. As you saw the pages with lots of images. Well, look, these images look pretty good. This is a gallery. Why don't I use this code? Because remember I said the easiest way to use the wiki is to imitate. So let's find an image that we like how it looks, and we'll just copy that. So I'll just click model making at random. And model making is a portal. As I curated and managed the wiki over the years, as you see, I tried to find headings to group things because the people writing songs about tensegrity don't really want to read the mathematics of tensegrity. The people interested in biotensegrity and human movement are very often not interested in the history, even though Susan is. So I'll click at random cardboard building model. Okay, that's a page. Somebody had made a cardboard building model here. Look, see, this video is dead. And that's another aspect of the wiki and something we need help with is cleaning out links that have died. It's because tensegrities tend to be temporary. So this guy made a 3-strut platform for his cats and it's just not here anymore. If I click this YouTube link, I'm sure the YouTube just isn't here. See, he took it off. So let's edit it and take it out because it's not here, right? So click edit. And since this is now in the past, I can just say, for example, Turkey created a 3-strut 5 for his cats. But now we don't have any example of cardboard tubes removed. Missing link.
So there's a challenge for someone to build a Tensegrity with
Well,
cardboard tubes. And
right, but let's look right now. Tensegrity cardboard tubes. See if cardboard. Look, the Tensegrity Wiki article comes first, which is refreshing, by the way, because when we changed wiki hosts, we lost our first place in Google.
Lionel,
Yes.
I happen to know that pink and white one that Jason Chris did as part of his, I think it was his graduate work that you showed, that was cardboard.
Oh.
Oh.
So you actually already showed it today.
So I showed that?
Yeah, it's pink and white.
Pink and white.
Big one that's outside in a yard. Like really big.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So we're not, so if I could find that one again, I wonder if we just go to images, maybe we'll find one.
Yeah, just wanted to let you know. Fun fact.
None of these are cardboard tubes. It would seem pretty, well, no, that's bamboo. Oh, wait, that looks like cardboard tubes, doesn't it? Let's see who did it.
And we've got someone that took the
Oh,
Shifting
look at that.
Paradigms course that, oh, that's beautiful, that made
Okay,
one out of
that's captured.
straws. Was that Olga?
So here I'm going to save this picture now on my local machine. This is the bit of work you would do because we remember we want to upload the image with proper attribution. Now, who am I going to attribute this to? If I hit X, do you see the name? Here he is, Lao Shui Yi. Perfect. So I'm going to save this picture with that person's name. And this will be, we're actually out of time for the how-to section. So I guess what I'll end on is I'll put a how-to page in the wiki so that these instructions are there. Maybe we'll make another more organized tutorial video. But let me just see if I can finish this in the time of our presentation. How much time do we have left for the presentation portion?
Well, we could go to about the hour, say 10 minutes, and then we'll
So that's
open.
not a lot of time. So I'll just stop here then. But you can see
We'll
how.
go a little over if you wish. I know people are enjoying this.
Are they? Are you sure? Well, I'm glad they are.
Everybody, if you're
Lionel,
Yes.
yeah, can I also just say what we're doing here? This is wonderful. You're creating a resource. I'm very excited about being able to go back to this and go through it nice and slowly, step by step, when I want to add something. So it's wonderful.
Okay, so now I'll show you how to do the attribution. So now the image is here, but whoever made this page, they might not want their images anywhere. We can't call them. So what we do is we do full attribution, and we're generous. We can write as much as we want. So we just write here cardboard tubes structure from, and then we'll even write the text that he had, and we'll give the link. And I have to tell you, in the 10 years and thousands of images and hundreds of pages and tens of authors, we've never had a single complaint. In fact, the Happy Pontist was the most we got. And I think that was when we upped the level of attribution. So but you can also see that it's a little more work than just throwing it on Facebook. But what you get as a result, it's here to stay. As I've already mentioned, I am an archivist. When I archive something, I intend to keep it. In fact, my works are archived in the Cornell Music Library. So archiving takes a little bit of extra work. Just Guide to Lionel Wolberger papers. There they are at Cornell. So you can read all about my early work if you'd like. So I think we've done a fair job of helping people understand where this photo came from without, we've been a little lazy. You know, we didn't rewrite all of this. To do that and still be good is we just write here text from the site. See, and then you're good. Now, there's no licensing. We don't want to watch the file. That means you'll get emails and we upload the file. Okay, so now this file is in the Mirahese media library and it can be used by anyone in Mirahese. So now we're going to upload the image. Now, I told you if you want to do something, just copy. So let's go to some random page and find an image that we like how it looks. So I clicked robotics this time. I'm very fond of robotics. I was lucky to get out to Jet Propulsion Lab and meet the NASA Tensegrity team that was building the Tensegrity robots a few years back. That work is now continued at the Berkeley Lab. Very exciting work where Tensegrity offers the ability to radically differentiate between the control structures, which are how long the tendons are, and the compressive or let's say morphological structures, the parts that keep it apart. No image here. I'm running out of luck here trying to find a page with an image that I like, but let's just try again and not give up. Let's go to Shai's page. Shai was at University of Tel Aviv. He did exciting work on Tensegrity caterpillar robots, and then he passed away recently to our great sadness. Another Tensegrity researcher that is now lost to us. Here's his series of videos. Here's a broken link, but no photos here either. I'll try one more. There were so many that at some point we just made these general pages. Why don't you just count the struts you have and throw it up there, you know, because it's just hard to categorize and give access. Here's a photo. That's a little tiny photo, but that's a good one. Here's a nice photo, floating logs. Okay, so I click edit, and now we'll see how the photo is structured. See that? It's got this little bit of code. So I copy that code. I'll cancel here. And I'll go back to my page. And this page, I don't like how this picture came out way too big. So I'm first going to fix that.
Lionel, as you're doing that, we've got a whole buzz of things going on over here about building tensegrities and cardboard tubes and pipe cleaners. Nice. And so, I know that Gerald also has a question and Elizabeth has a question for when we're done. But you're going to take us a little bit more of a tour before we finish, right?
I am. So I noticed I put the file name here. Now there's just this magic letters, thumb and 250 pics and none. And then here is some kind of caption. So here I would like to just give credit again. So it's IdraCore2. So it's a strange name, but that's the only name I have. So I will put here IdraCore2, Tensegrity by IdraCore2. And now here again, I write updated the image code. Click Save Changes, and the image should now look more normal. There we go. It's a little smaller. And I think I'll stop here because we do want to do more of a tour. But I can use that same code to upload the cardboard image. Where was I working on that? We were going to put the cardboard, I forgot where, here, cardboard building model. Okay, cardboard has struts. I click edit here. And now, oh no, I lost the copy of the image.
Maybe we should move on then.
Okay, good. Thank you. I will be happy to move on because I love the grand tour part. So let me just drink.
Yeah, we don't want to miss that out. And I know some people are often going right at the half hour. So. Okay,
so there was one wonderful morning I woke up and through social media, somebody had posted Tensegrity jewelry. Now, I don't think it's so practical because it looks like it would be a little uncomfortable, but it certainly was something new. And that was always my drive to find new things. Like I mentioned to the umbrella, because when we see new applications, somehow that excites our interest, what it really interests us about Tensegrity in the first place, which is it helps us to generate new ideas. And I'm going to close with quite a bit of thought about what I've learned in the years of doing this. But let's look at the jewelry. So this fellow, Arnold Martin, made this tiny, tiny Tensegrity. Maybe it's the smallest one ever made. I wrote for more details, see here. Let's see what that is. Oh, I made a whole page for Arnold Martin. And by the way, each of you can have a page. It's free. Just go in, make a page. And Arnold had spent, this is very typical. An artist or a person like Arnold Martin suddenly discovers Tensegrity, builds a ton of models, uploads them, and then he's done. I'm not sure if we searched today for him, if we would follow these. You see, he even named it. So we were lucky to capture this and to upload it. So that was the jewelry. Let's go on the grand tour. What would be next? The La Plata Stadium. Now here, there's a huge overlap between tension and tensegrity. And we always just err on the side of inclusion. And we just try to state how we feel about it. So there was one member of the community who uploaded this. And frankly, when you look very closely, there's a lot to think about here. What is the role of tensegrity in the La Plata Stadium? Is that really tensegrity holding up the roof? So we uploaded all these photos because it was so interesting to see a real civic structure engineered to such an extent. And I wasn't even aware this set of photos was uploaded as well. But at the very top, we state that it is a 53,000 capacity stadium formed from the intersection of circles, thus deploying a pre-stressed tensegrity design. So there is an argument to be made that that is a tensegrity. Robbie Cuthbert, I've been pleased to see that he continues to upload images on social media, but I have not had a chance to update his page recently. He does this beautiful work. That's him. That's his table. And this is before the rage where people were uploading all their constructions. So we have that captured. By the way, something else I'll mention in terms of archiving, as you see, YouTube videos disappear. So if you really want to make sure that a YouTube video is archived, you need to download it and then upload it to the wiki. We support that also. So that if a video does disappear, it'll still be here. So that I'd like to go faster through a few more, although they're all so wonderful. So this is lighting structures by James Clark, where the compression tubes are actual fluorescent lights. This was the Jakob Tensegrity Torus. I hope this would be a permanent structure, but they took it down after a month. We were lucky to have the team actually give us their plans. So we have that archived, a very ambitious structure. This team just thought it would be a nice PR stunt. So these lit up. That leads to the connections between tensegrity and the bicycle wheel, of which there are many. And this is an elaborate wheel made by Tom Flemons, a master model builder of tensegrity who we lost recently to illness. And his work is archived. This is a tower, a student project built in Barcelona. It's in the wiki, documented. This is the Needle Tower, which is one of the most important and famous tensegrities ever created. I took two more unusual images of it because there are so many photographs. This tensegrity is very important in the lives and the history of tensegrity. So that's the artist who created it. Busy adjusting it. I think this is the one in Holland by the trees behind it. And this is a very rare picture. And luckily they filmed it at the Hirshhorn where they took it down to clean it and adjust it. So that was really fun. That's all in the wiki. And then the people. Now, as I've said, feel free to create a page for yourself. These are people who have been significant enough to get pages. They come with all kinds of different agendas. Some people want to promote themselves. The wiki is not an advertising platform, but as you see, it is happy to point to all your work. Just, leave out wonderful and most amazing and just describe what you did and point to it. T.C. Howard is an interesting example. I just remember it because here he was part of the original generation. He worked directly with Buckminster Fuller, and he passed on. And his family was very upset by the lack of credit that they felt that he was getting in the works of Buckminster Fuller. She became active on social media, and so I opened a page for him. Because this wiki isn't really about the domes, I didn't feel that I wanted to add too much. So I simply, at least I dedicated something to his memory, which pleased his daughter very much. But this was a very happy circumstance because it led to the discovery of a tensegrity that frankly had been a little bit lost. I hadn't read about it anywhere, and T.C. Howard helped build it. It was at the World's Fair in New York City. So once I found out about this, I did a fair amount of research. As I've told you, Tensegrity Wiki is everywhere. So it's here on it's here on YouTube. You just have to be. I use Firefox for all my Tensegrity stuff so that it doesn't get confused with all my other work. So if we go to YouTube and just look for Tensegrity World's Fair, you'll see the result of that. I think that's a short story, and then we'll end with the things that I've learned. So Tensegrity World's Fair should come right up. If not, there it is. So I actually made this video personally after hearing from T.C. Howard's children, because I didn't know there was a Tensegrity at the World's Fair. I combed the web. So The Tower of Light Photonium by Kenneth Nelson in 1964, which is very early. So you can see, I found this, this is the outline of the pavilion. This is, these are materials I found online. I just couldn't resist these wonderful hostesses describing what they did. But the key is, look, there it is. See, there's a tensegrity in the photo. Then I paused here because of his daughter's passion to remember his memory. So there was this wonderful plaque that I found. So I put that on. And then now I scoured the net to find photos, and they're very hard to attribute properly. You know, some of these are from films, some of them are from, but there will be attributions at the end, so you can see the tensegrity there. And I made this short video. You can see it standing there. And there was even a cross arch. Look at that. So that was one fun work of, and at the end of it, I give credits to everywhere that the things were found. So let's come to the conclusion. I really appreciate your patience, and I want to now touch on some things I've learned. So first of all, tensegrity is something that people seem to find on their way to something else. For example, you're working in robotics, and there are certain puzzles in robotics that you're thinking about. You know, how can I do this different? Sometimes these are questions that aren't even that well formed. You know, you just know the radical separation here of the control cables and the structural elements. I think that will help me. Or in biology, Stephen Levin has spoken often of his looking for a solution to the spine. How can the spine structure itself when there seems to be spaces and fascia between the compressive bones? It's not screws and bones like the model of a skeleton. And then he sees a tensegrity and says, oh, this can help me think this through. So that's one thing I've learned. That tensegrity is something people find on their
Lionel, we're losing you.
Oh, good. I thought it was me.
No.
Oh, dear.
That's okay. Let's hope he comes back soon.
Well, we're waiting, Susan. I think there are many people here with models that they can share on the Tensegrity Wiki. And there was a conversation about Mariana. I know. Oh, there's Steve. Go ahead, Steve. Let me spotlight you so that I can see you.
There's an earring.
An earring.
Yes. Oh, good. I'm glad you got that, Steve.
Yeah, there's an earring.
You need to take a photograph of the earring, Steve, so that we
I
can
have to
put them
wear
up.
it, but you lose it. Up against my sweater, you can see it. But
Yeah.
that's the earring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You need
was
to
that
take
one of
photographs.
Nelson's? Oh, Lionel is back.
Okay,
Why don't you
great.
show Lionel the earring, Steve?
Steve,
I-
hold up the earring for Lionel to see.
Oh, get me back on. Wait.
That was one of, was that, who made that? Kenneth Nelson?
I don't remember who
You
made
know.
it, frankly. I don't think Snelson made a pair for his daughter out of gold that I saw once.
Oh, how
He
wonderful.
showed me. But this is, I'm not sure who made this for me.
But that one, those are, you actually have both of them, Steve, right? And those are wood.
Yes, these are wood. That's fair.
Hold a little higher. Yeah. Okay, I want. Who's going to start making those?
They're cute. They're really cute. So when did I drop? I'm sorry about that. I had an internet
Okay, you
storm.
dropped just after you started. Here's what I've learned.
Really? None of that came through. So first
Well,
of
it's not-
all,
a little bit of it did, but I
No,
don't-
you mentioned he mentioned my name and then got lost.
yeah, that.
well, your story is very indicative of this tensegrity on the way to something else. And by the way, should I just leave my camera on, or because it's
Yes.
just speaking for the ending?
Sure.
So your story is very indicative of this. You were thinking about a problem. You weren't clear what the solution was. You weren't even clear what the problem was, but you just knew that there was something about the spine and the way it was taught and bones, and you were seeking. And then you saw a tensegrity, and it suddenly opened all kinds of new ideas and methods of inquiry. That is a pattern that I've seen over and over and over. I've seen it in robotics, seen it in cell biology, seen it in building and civic structures, also in mathematics. So I call it tensegrity something people do on the way to something else. And that's one reason why the Tensegrity Wiki has been useful, because when you do it on the way somewhere, once you get to where you're going, you're done with it, you know, but the things you've created can help other explorers. And I'm going to iterate in a minute why that's so important. In fact, why don't I get to it right now? You can imagine Roman numerals, and here actually it might help to see a screen. So let me turn this share on again, just to make a point. So, you know, the Roman Empire was one of the most powerful empires ever. And this is how they did math. 12 times 6 is 72, right? 70, how do you do that? I wish it had come out to 74, but it doesn't matter. That's how you did math. Now, somebody somewhere came up with this idea of writing numbers like this. We call it Arabic numerals today, Hindu Arabic numerals. We're not sure where it first started. But when the first people that started doing this would have to do a ton of explaining. You know, they say, well, the 1 over here is actually 1 times 10. And this is 2. So this is actually 12, even though it says 1, 2. And the Roman will say, excuse me, you add. So this is 10, 11, 12. This is a much better system. This is a stupid system because this is really 3. You say, no. Look, if you understand what's being represented here, this is actually a more powerful system. Now, history has proven that this is a far more efficient and powerful modeling system for manipulating numbers. And we have left this behind just because it's less useful. This was certainly useful to the Romans. That's how I see tensegrity. Tensegrity is currently in that early phase. The people who see its power, like Stephen, like maybe everyone on this call, they see that there's something important here. But when you bring it to a civic engineer, he'll say, that's not better than what I'm doing. It's worse. In fact, it's much worse, because they are engaged in a very practical paradigm of their own activities. But the tensegrity community is convinced that there's something deep and important happening here with these sticks and wires. And we're wrestling to get it to the point where it becomes generally useful. And so that's why it's exciting to be part of Tensegrity. And in the same spirit, I wanted to point out that something else that I've learned is that it's the folk that are doing it. Innovation does not come from government and universities. Very often it comes from the folk. And my favorite example is jazz, blues, and rock and roll. When these forms of music first developed, they were abhorred by the elites. They were not permitted in the opera houses. They happened in the honky-tonk halls, but people just loved it. Ed Sullivan had controversy when he finally featured Elvis Presley on his show to a broad audience, and he had to argue for the value of the music. So during this type of period where a art or way of doing things like tensegrity is not yet generally accepted, but the folk are engaged in it, you can be sure that there's probably something very interesting and important there. And in some sense, it's born from need. The original tensegrity explorer, Buckminster Fuller, was searching for an answer to a problem that he could barely articulate. He had lost his daughter to the Spanish flu, which we can understand very well today in the year of the COVID pandemic. In 1918, the pandemic struck New York, and Buckminster Fuller was an ordinary young man married to a family with an architect, but he was not an architect. He worked for Armour distributing meat, and he lost his daughter to the flu. Now, you know that that's the kind of blow that can destroy a family. But for Fuller, it put him on search. He was determined to find a way to build housing that could support more life. And this is the next insight that I want to share. What Fuller did and what we do is we move between semantic spaces. That's an awfully big word. But what I'm trying to express here is that Fuller moved between spaces that generally are not permitted to move between. So for example, I've mentioned to you the tragic story of his losing his first daughter, then having a new daughter born 4 years later. And he was determined that she would have a better home. So he thought, well, how do you make a home? Well, a home is a kind of cube. Well, a cube is a form. Well, this form seems to be better. It's a kind of dome, an icosahedron. See, he's moved between spaces. Most architects won't do that. And then once he's holding the icosahedron, he'll say, well, the icosahedron could be mapped to the earth. We can make a map. What architects also create a map? Then once he made his map, he said, you know, we can rotate the forms and make great circles. And he created great circle models. Frank Lloyd Wright or Fuller's own father-in-law, Hewlett, would never build a dome for their customers because they're working in one semantic space. Homes, fine homes, beautiful homes. But Fuller kept moving between spaces, and by doing that, he innovated because he was searching. Tensegrity was one of the things he was searching for. And we can continue to harness this. You can also think of it as a kind of Mandela effect. When you look at a mandala and then it causes you to dwell on other things, you're looking at a drawing, but you're thinking about the world. And finally, tensegrity is structural. It causes us to think deeply about structure, and this group is leaders in thinking about biological structure. And what I have learned is that structure is, in some sense, complicated. It's something that is not really taught. You can learn all the calculus you want. You don't really understand structure. It amazes me that till today, the books that I constantly refer to were written in the 70s. There's a book by Gordon, Why Buildings Don't Fall Down. There's something tricky about structure, and tensegrity is all about structure. So we can look at crystals, but they're static. Once structure starts moving, it becomes even more complex. So what I've learned is that by being engaged in tensegrity, we're causing ourselves to think more about structure, to think more about how we can make efficient structures, and to be inspired to find new structures, because in the end, structures is what our built environment is made of, the homes we live in, the walls, the ceilings, the bridges, and that's why we see tensegrity also built in those forms. Thank you very much for going through this grand tour of the Tensegrity Wiki. I hope you've had delighted in some of the pleasures, and I'm here for questions.
Thank you, Lionel. That was fantastic and one to watch again, especially when we start uploading our own things to the Tensegrity Wiki. And I really appreciate you taking the time, this what I learned section, because there's a lot of thought gone into that. And one of the things that came up for me is also the investigation of the tensegrity as a metaphor. But rather than go on and on, I'm going to invite Gerald up to speak first. Is he able to unmute himself, Mariana? Meanwhile, Steve, you're on camera. Did you have something you want to say to Lionel?
I mean, that last section that Lionel did brought me to tears. You know, I've been looking at the body that way, and I couldn't express in words what he just did. And it's actually been my exploration over these years, is that I was looking for something. And the tensegrity has brought me to this thing, but it's gone past just the tensegrity. I've also, it made me look at the body completely differently, and continually I still change it using the same metaphor. So it's just been a wonderful talk, and I really appreciate what Lionel's done. Years ago, I'm not sure it was on your wiki, but many years ago, I got in a big discussion about the bicycle wheel and how it works. And I got in a big fight with somebody online, but so I quit. But I'm not sure. I don't remember if it was on the text on the wiki site.
I lurked on that fight. It was on a listserv, and I captured it in the wiki, attributing it. By the way, you're one of the people that, as the wiki grew, suddenly all this stuff was coming from Stephen Levin, and I didn't know if we had your permission, so we just attributed like crazy, and you never called to complain, so I'm glad it suited you. And if you don't mind, it moves me to hear you say that, and so I kind of want to bring that home. Tensegrity, you don't need to stay here. I think people get confused by this aspect of it. The civil engineers are still scratching their heads. I just ran into a wonderful presentation, which, by the way, criticized you, Stephen, if you're up for another little tiff. He was very respectful, but he was a civil engineer, and he said, these guys keep saying that tensegrity is a better model, but I'm now going to prove to you mathematically that the tensegrity actually requires more force. And he does. He's correct. And since what I'm trying to say is he engaged with tensegrity because it intrigued him too. It opens new ideas of the configuration of the world. We can't think to ourselves that we've figured it out. We haven't. And Fuller's moving between spaces, saying, oh, if we build out of bubbles, we'll use less material. So let's build out of bubbles. The civic planner's he's insane, because there's literally 1,000 years of real estate rules, or 400 years. You know, you have to put a fence and all, and then you get the air rights. You can't put a bubble. But that doesn't change the fact that by moving between the spaces, he brought to us a new way of building, and it's currently a folk art. People are still building domes and living in them to this day. They're not building them in Manhattan, but they're building them everywhere. It's still a folk art, and the folk, if they like something, they're onto something.
And I think too, this moving between spaces is something that we all here love to do. Gerald, are you there? I know you had I'm going to unmute you, Gerald, because I know Gerald wants to contribute and had our first question. Gerald,
Just quickly, Chris,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but hang on, Mariana. Yes, I agree. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah.
My video is still blocked, by the way.
Okay. Well, I
Anyway.
take care of that. Mariana, will you please, well, everybody, we welcome you now at this point to turn your videos back on, although apparently they're blocked, are they?
They are.
Okay.
While you're working that out, I'm just going to say, I'll take this opportunity. Number one, Lionel, I don't know if you know this, the needle tower on the mall is down.
Is it down permanently?
Well, they took it down about a year ago for a 1-year installation. And then they said that, because I went there one day and I just, you can imagine, I was with my husband, I was like, it's gone. So then I was on the phone with them and I was getting passed along from one person to the other. And then they're going to have 2 years of redoing the grounds. So it was scheduled. I said, so where is it in the meantime? Where have you put it? And they said, well, it's in storage. And I said, do you understand that this is, you know, a scientific revolution is happening? And you've got the star arts item that has led science in this in a box. Anyway.
I've also always loved the poetry of the Washington Arch, which is an Egyptian obelisk, and then the Needle Tower, which is a modern American obelisk.
Yeah, the Washington
I love how
Monument.
they talk to each other. Yeah, Washington Monument,
exactly.
thank you.
I also, do we have Gerald ready yet?
Yeah, Gerald's ready.
Okay.
Go ahead,
I'll
Gerald.
ask, I have a question for whenever there's time for it.
Okay, first Gerald, then Elizabeth, and then you, Susan.
My question was very simple. Basically, is it like socially acceptable to put your own stuff up?
Yes, and Gerald, I have to tell you, you're one of those people that you have so much work. But I personally, I would have given you a page long ago, but I was just very cautious because it was your work. I didn't want you to feel. But I would love, please create pages for yourselves. I know it feels strange. There's no page for Lionel Wolberger, for example. I don't think I'm capable of doing that. If you want, I'll make it for you. But Gerald, you've done so much work. Your work is very important, and we need to get it up there.
Thank you very much. The stuff I've been doing, I've been trying to put in a very permanent form. So, you know, I made everything that I've got so far has been put on GitHub. So the idea is, you know, make it as permanent as possible.
That's good. Just it helps if you have an archivist literally designated, and you can go ahead and designate me. Although I'm getting up to those decades where I'm going to have to find my own. It's not a simple task, but we need to preserve this because you never know where the next Tensegrity Explorer will come from. And Gerald, your work is amazing. Also, remember Marcelo Pars? He showed up for like a year. His models were unbelievable. I managed to catch all of them, or as many as I could find. And it's just an inspiration.
Okay, that was my question.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and then Susan, and then Carol. Go ahead. Oh, can you unmute? You can't unmute. Just a sec, Elizabeth. There we go.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for this inspiring presentation. I have a question and then a bridge. And the question is that given your experiences with physics and with music, would you speak about the vibration or the resonance of tensegrity? And perhaps from there, you could bridge into recommendations for practices on how one can become more skilled in fluid transitions between semantic spaces.
It's a beautiful question. So let me warn you by saying I don't feel I'll give an answer as elegant as the question. And here's why. I have thought about it a lot, and you're going to see that there's a lot of muck and mire. So Tesla was, to my mind, not acknowledged enough for his work on resonance. He is famous for, not famous, but if you read the biographies, you'll find he literally set up a machine with a rotating wheel, and then he kept tuning it until it was resonating at the frequency of his building, and the building started collapsing. So resonance is the key to your question. And the bad news is, like tensegrity, we don't fully understand resonance yet. Nikolai Tesla was unbelievable in what he did with it. He invented the tube light, you know, that's resonance. So he moved between spaces. He built his physical machine, then he made an electrical resonance in gas, which caused it to light up. And he said, that's a good idea. And then he played with wireless power. The other reason why the answer isn't elegant is because music stubbornly remains in the category of love and wonder, things that we have great difficulty talking about, but we know it when we experience it. So Tensegrity begs for musical interpretations. As a musician, I'm very excited when people start to combine it. But again, realize to make music, you need a soundboard, and soundboards need to be wide, and struts are narrow. So one of the first things I thought was it could be a lyre. And won't it be interesting if this string is C and this string is D, and it might sound beautiful. But the tubes aren't very good soundboards, so the sound won't project that much. And finally, I've just keep me tuned to your explorations, because music therapy, music resonance, and vibration is an extremely important way for us to understand how we communicate, how things can transfer invisibly. And I think we have so much to learn in those fields, but I don't see any answers currently.
Elizabeth, do you have any final words before we pass the mic to Susan?
You said you had a bridge.
Oh, well, I was, the bridge was to ask you to speak about recommendations or practices for how to move fluidly between semantic spaces, or my slur of words, to somatic spaces. But.
Oh, I thought that was a very deep use of words. I was trying to think, well, somatic, that was...
Well, sometimes deep is by mistake.
Really cool. It seems to be, in my experience, it seems to be something in people's personalities. Some people commit to certain semantic spaces, and when you put them past it, they get agitated and anxious. And then there are others that just seem to live only there. So I think poetry's power comes from its ability to move us between spaces. The words become unsprung. So I guess get with like-minded people, like the people who've gathered here. People have the patience, but there is a subset of people here who are eager to, when we discover a leap between spaces that's actually practical and useful and delivers artifacts that can help, then let's now nail that down. And I think that's what we see in Tensegrity. It goes over to robotics for a while, and then they have a robot that seems to work. That's great. Nobody's built a practical building yet out of Tensegrity. Nobody's even built a bridge, a footbridge. There are many models, but none of them have been built because, as Kenneth Snelson warned us, and he is the leader, he said, you have no idea. The amount of energy in these structures is mind-boggling. And it's actually dangerous. If this cable snaps, someone's going to get hurt. So these things still remain to be worked out.
Right. So instead of a collapse, you're going to have things catapulting all over the place. So someone who had that experience, luckily with a smaller structure. But Susan, would you please speak up?
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, I have a couple more things, but let me, Dorothy is here, and Dorothy, I would encourage you to have Joel, your collaborator, put his large tensegrity and his work that he's done. Lionel, he's done work therapeutically where the people he's working with can stand inside of the tensegrity and feel those vibrations. Really cool stuff.
There's the answer to Elizabeth. Let's put it in the wiki.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I just want to say, because it just came up, unfortunately, the Arecibo telescope in Puerto Rico just collapsed.
Yes.
The footage is there from the drones, and a few cables had snapped, and they knew that it got to the point where it was too dangerous to try to fix. Okay, so there's footage for when it finally, these cables are snapping and snapping. And it's, if you want to see what happens, when a tensionally based structure flies apart, it's really amazing footage. But my question, and forgive my ignorance, all the times I've been on the Tensegrity Wiki, I haven't looked, and I just looked and I couldn't find it. Do you have an oral history section? Because I know we've got like Alan, is it Alan Rolfs who's with us today, who's been doing this since the 60s. And just, you know, your story, Lionel, Alan's, everybody who's been at this for a while. Is there a place on the wiki for oral histories?
Yes, make a page and let's get it. Let's catch it. I would love to hear Alan's story.
Okay, thank you, Carol.
There we go. I'm always interested in the turn of the phrase, Lionel. Thank you so much for your beautiful presentation. You were talking about, I think it was a civil engineer, the conflict that you can have with talking to a scientist about these ideas. And I just loved the phrase you used. You said the struggle is that they are engaged in a practical paradigm of their own. And then I missed the last word.
Oh, okay. Let's just try to say it again. We can go back on the recording. But look, my sister is a biophysicist, and she's very accomplished. She was just recently admitted to the American Academy of Sciences. She has a lab at and does amazing work on molecules. I visited her and I did one of those semantic space leaps. I was looking at her model of the molecule, and it's all held by sticks to the top and the bottom so that all the pieces will be held in place. And just as Stephen was wondering what is really going on in the spine, and oh, look at this, this could help. I looked at this molecule and I said, you know, they're not actually touching in a molecule. I wonder if we could model this so they're not touching. And then she explained to me at great length, because I'm the younger brother, so I'm used to this, how little I knew, how this is just a model, and getting confused by the model is like of somebody pointing at the moon and you're looking at his finger and not the moon, and it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Now, I didn't pursue the conversation because I know it is relevant, and that's why I remain in this field. But I also know that I'm not going to convince her because, and here comes your sentence, because she is committed to a practical set of efficacious methodologies that bring her the results that she needs. She's not looking for something in another semantic space. She has defined her problems. She knows how to attack them. And bringing in ideas from rotating polyhedra or bubbles. You know, there's a famous, not famous, but one of the few films that well expresses Buckminster Fuller's work. In a series of frames, you go from I believe it's the dome that he built, to bubbles on the seashore. That's a tremendous shift of semantic space. And the narrator says something, or he says, I believe, he says, look at all those bubbles. Nature isn't calculating pi to create them. If it had to, it would never finish. That is this technique of changing semantic spaces, because you go tell that to a NASA engineer and he'll say, you're stupid. Because if we want to land something on the moon, pi is just fine, and we only need to calculate it to about 15 spaces, and we'll make no errors, and we're done. And that's why the metaphor of the Roman numerals is so powerful, I feel, because the Romans didn't need any Arabic numerals to do what they did, right? But we today couldn't survive without them.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Lionel. And does anybody else have a question here? Lionel, so something that I'm wondering about is the bigger picture. You and I have had a bit of a communication about Buckminster Fuller himself, and you've referred a bit to his coming to his way of being. but can you talk a little bit more about tensegrity and synergistics and that bigger picture? Where did it come from in terms of these semantic spaces?
So again, to warn all the listeners, not everyone will be interested in this corner of the topic, but Loretta Lawrence was, and I am, very deeply. And the question is as follows. Mr. Buckminster Fuller was very articulate about why he did the things he did. He told the story repeatedly that he was in Chicago, he had been ousted from his business, he was basically a failure, and he stood on the shores of Lake Michigan and considered committing suicide. Why should he even go on living? There was no purpose to it. And he heard a voice that said, your life does not belong to you. You need to serve the universe. And he then changed his way of being, changed what he was doing, and went about serving the universe, and it worked out for him. Because he said, if you serve the universe will bring you enough to survive. Some kind of story like that. Now, there are many details to the story. When you begin to examine the details, you find that many of them are false. Like, for example, he said, I didn't speak for a year. Sometimes he says, I didn't speak for 2 years. When you actually read the diaries, as Loretta did, and you speak to his family, as I have done, you find out that this man never stopped talking. But on the other hand, he's not a liar. We know what liars look like. There's a fellow who sold, did the pyramid scheme. That man's a liar. And he constantly changed his background story to impress people. Fuller was not changing his story to impress people. It doesn't impress me if you say you didn't speak for 2 years. He was curating a story that powerfully expressed truths. So in this small group of people who are interested in this, I ask myself, what exactly is the truth, if there is any truth in here? So, and this isn't published yet, I'm just sharing with you. So I found
Wait a minute,
that
you're sharing on YouTube. So if you don't want to get out there, you might want to censor yourself. Just a warning.
He did take
it was true to him.
Yeah, but it's more than that. See, I hope you don't regret asking the question, because I'm way too interested in this. But if he's going to lie, then tell a good lie. What are these lies? And he's very, very specific. So, for example, I'll give you a better example. Again, this isn't well known, but I have the research. I've been to the archive personally. I've read Fuller's own letters. I've spoken to his family. The family doesn't even remember this. So Fuller one day was out on the street in Chicago and somebody mugged him, hit him quite hard, almost broke his jaw. It was extremely painful for a week or two, and then he recovered. It's noted in his diary. In the first biography of him that was written for Time magazine in the 30s, he wrote, I got almost mugged. This guy almost broke my jaw, but I said, well, I better be stronger than this because I have to go serve all of the universe. He never told that story again because it just didn't work. You see, so that's what I think is the answer to your question. For certain people, they are motivated to engage in this drifting between spaces by a motivation. And motivation comes from story. And the story that motivated Fuller, and he went to great effort to craft that story into a powerful story. But the story is true from top to bottom, was that he keenly felt that we are almost made of nothing, that the barrier between life and death is razor thin, and that we must pay attention to what's important, not who's running for president, not what bar of soap is in the bathroom, but why are houses heavy? That is a strange question. But it's actually a good question if you keep your mind on what's important. And Fuller developed a methodology for constantly returning to what was important. And I even feel that we could say that Fuller found a reliable technique for seeing past conventional reality and into ultimate reality. And that is not mystical woohoo. That's trying to put into words what a Buddhist practice is about, what a yogic practice is about, what a Carmelite nun is seeking. A reliable set of repeatable methodologies that bring a person to not focus on conventional reality, soap, cars, whatever, but ultimate reality. What does it mean to be alive? What are my true responsibilities? What is it that I am here on this earth to do? Fuller was forced to confront this in a personal crisis, which is common, unfortunately. Many people have personal crises, but he insisted on honing the attitude and perspective into a repeatable process. And I would argue that he brought himself regularly back to that place where he was by the shores of Lake Michigan, beneath the tall trees. He usually leaves that out, but the trees are very important. Having come from church, he always left that out after a while, but it's in the original writings. His first penetration to an experience of ultimate reality was deeply Christian and God-centered. He felt it came from God, and he insisted on that to the end of his days. He stopped calling God Jesus and started calling him just God. The story has a kernel of truth, and it's a story that we all deserve to hear still. COVID has done a reset on some of conventional reality. I keep hearing from my friends, I found that I don't need 20 outfits. I'm wearing 3. I found that I don't need to go out 3 nights a week. I kind of like my home. Conventional reality accumulates so many things that we don't really need. And Fuller insisted and helped his audiences to constantly return to the real questions, the ultimate reality. How can we make this earth a better place for all of us to enjoy more future days, more time to have wonderful communion and meetings like this?
And I think that, that message resonates for so many of us who are from all of these different fields. Many of us, probably most of us here, working with the body. So the way that we look at the body itself, bringing the tensegrity model to the body, ultimately influences the way we think, the way we interact with people, and on all the way we live. So whether or not, and there are differences of opinion in our community, is biotensegrity focused on living organisms, or is it everything? I think those differences come up because of the experience of connecting into that for many of us, and some of us aren't interested, and that's okay too. This is very similar to what you were talking about, different communities within the community. Now we do have a question here from, where is it? Oh, Nicholas might want to ask a question. And Alan, if you are still here, we would love to hear from you, because I hear you've been around since the days of Buckminster Fuller and are very experienced in this work.
Hi.
Hi, Nicholas.
Yeah, it was a question Bruce raised actually last week, but it's one trick that's always fascinated me. You always, at parties, you sit some person down in a chair and 3 of you stand around and push down for about a minute. And then suddenly the person is really light to lift up. And I was thinking there must be some energy, potential energy being stored up during the sort of pushing down. I was just wondering how this relates to the sort of general tensegrity structure of the body. You're storing this energy somewhere in the tensegrity structure, this pushing down, the effort, the force you're using.
I already warned you, structure mystifies me still. I would hope that one of the biotensegrity people would answer that. They speak of the springiness. Graham, I'm sure you have a good answer for that.
And I believe Susan does as well. Maybe Steve does. Anybody? Graham, Susan, Steve, Graham?
Well, yeah, so they are, they do have a springiness, and especially if you've got a structure built out of multiple tensegrities, the geometry magnifies that quality of springiness. And that's part of what's going on with the pre-stress. Graham, Steve, go ahead.
Graham?
With biotensegrity, we're looking at the body from through the lens of tensegrity in the first place, and all the characteristics of these models will be in us in a different form, inside us in a different form, because we sort of show that the body is a complex, hugely complex tensegrity structure. So it stores energy, it'll have springiness, it has all the properties you can find in the simple models inside us in different ways. But as Lionel says, there's so much more work to do in coming out of this.
Steve, did you want to add to that?
Not much. I just want to let Lionel know way back, I had a short, no, my computer went out, so I missed some stuff. But I had the Needle Tower sing for me. So if you pay attention to, you go there at night when no one's watching and give it a whack and it sings. It's not there anymore. So, but you can get it to sing. So Lionel would be happy with that.
I've also imagined drawing a bow across the wires.
Yes.
That would be cool.
Okay, so Alan,
Yeah?
hi. I saw you taking your camera on a tour. Are we going to get to see a tour of some of your things? And will you start by just letting people know a little bit about your background, because most people here haven't met you?
Well, currently I'd consider myself a metagrobologist, which has been from high school. The three-dimensional puzzles, mechanical puzzles. And I kind of now spend my life making puzzles both for other people and for my granddaughters. And the tensegrity structures I've got a bunch of different types of them. And the granddaughters couldn't figure out what hold them up. But on the top of each one, I have a little unicorn. And my youngest granddaughter says, I know what, it's the magic of the unicorn. So, and the other granddaughter says, don't believe Grandpa, he's lying to you. But it's a long story about me getting kicked out of geometry class, told to go to study hall, you don't need me lecturing to you. And so I turned into geometry in 2 months, and trigonometry also, then discovered Buckminster Fuller and Martin Gardner, and went off on all kinds of weird tangents, and Penrose tiling, and all of the stuff from Buckminster Fuller. So, and then decided, my neighbor kid and I decided we needed to build a tower out in the front with 4x4s and cables, and I don't remember what happened to it, but we built one, and it was up for a long time.
And when was this that you built that?
This was in the late 60s, which, I don't know how popular Buckminster Fuller was back then or not, but just it was a bunch of nerds that it caught our attention. And well, what do you do if you finish up 2 years of math in the space of a month or so? You got to do something else. And so, we're always building stuff and being told it's not possible to do that. And it's, well, you're just not smart enough to do it. We'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the way to really learn, isn't it?
Yeah, I never took no for an answer, but it's, now, why are you building this Van de Graaff generator? Okay, and then what's the Leyden jar for? We did all kinds of weird stuff. Having access to a shop and deciding, okay, we can do anything. But then I went on, and I was a surgeon for 30 years, a trauma surgeon, but still kept up with the puzzles. And Yeah, I love my mechanical puzzles, solving them, but that was medicine. What's going on? What do I do not see? What's the structure here? What's important to the structure? Like with the spine, it's kind of easy to see, okay, is that a tensegrity structure?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little weird.
I think you're in good company here.
Alan, I'd like to see your work, and so let's be in touch.
Okay, because just listening today, I'm sitting here and I've come up with a few new ideas for some sort of tensegrity structures, and thinking about a thing called a belt hook that balances some tension. Where you balance a belt on your finger that's it should fall off. And just, okay, how do I incorporate that into some of my tensegrity structures where it's off balance, or appears to be. But I think I've weird things.
Okay, and I'm looking at the time now. Cobalt, do you want to have the last question? We're kind of.
I know Dr. Steve has something as well.
Oh, Dr. Steve.
I just wanted to bring up one of Bookman's Fuller's major projects was his concept of spaceship Earth, and probably Lionel could talk about it better than I can. But it was a world concept of us as a spaceship and how we can make the world whole. Lionel, you
said it very well. If you Fuller was able to think of spaceship Earth before we got the photograph back from the Apollo mission. He was thinking about it already in 1945 and 1946, and he published new ways of looking at the Earth in what was then Look magazine, which was one of the most popular. It's like being a YouTuber today. And when the photograph came back in 1972, it became an iconic image. We suddenly could see we are indeed all on a spaceship. Fuller liked to tell people, what would you do if you were an astronaut? And people say, well, I don't want to be an astronaut. He'd say, well, you are one. You're just on a very large spaceship. But after going through a year of COVID and all the confusion, I want to remind people that it's not just peaceful thoughts we get when we realize we're all on a spaceship. There are some people who go, oh, there's only one spaceship. I want it to be mine. So humanity, conflict is not behind us, but I think we all know that we are on a spaceship, but we don't think of it every day. And that goes back to the other things we were talking about: immediate reality, conventional reality, and ultimate reality. If I go to my wife now and say, we're on a spaceship, he'll say, Lionel, we need steak tonight for dinner. That's what's important. And so finding a time and the people in a community that some people would not be thinking of what are we having for dinner now, but thinking, we're all in a spaceship, and a spaceship is round, and an icosahedron is round. Where does that take me? Those are the artists and the dreamers that bring us innovations.
Okay, thank you, Lionel. Cobalt, did you want to have a quick last question before we close?
No, I think I was just giving the opposite of what Nicholas was saying. It just came up to me, that memory of me being a child and my brother picking me up and throwing him over his shoulder all the time. And so I started grounding down into my legs, and I was heavier. He couldn't pick me up. So it's just a fascinating mind explosion. And I really appreciate, Lionel, all that you've been talking about. It's very good stuff to chew on.
Thanks, Cobalt. Graham?
Stevens.
You're on. No, okay, go ahead, Lionel, and then.
I just wanted to say that the Biotensegrity crowd are really figuring that stuff out. You can make yourself heavier, right? We all know that. All kids do it. But take that to a physicist. No, you're not making yourself heavier. You just change your center of gravity. And something else that happens here, and going back to this idea of spaces, there's something going on there that the folk know. I'm making myself heavier. Now, clearly that's not the right word for a physicist, but there's something here. There's one famous person, Mandelbrot. He posed himself a question decades ago. He said some things are rougher than others. And it's not an interesting question for anyone in academia, but he pursued it doggedly, and he ended up discovering fractals. So we should honor these folk ideas and check what they really mean.
And Susan, I noticed in the chat, and we're going to make this really quick because I know it is past time to close, but I think what you added to the chat is really worth saying out loud so that people on YouTube can also hear your comment about changing weight.
Right. So your weight doesn't change, right? But the other person's perception of your weight does change, right? And it has to do with, because what we can control is how the forces within us are being distributed, right? And so a tensegrity structure is fully distributing the forces, right? And we, made of transmutable material, we can make changes. And so the little kid can kind of say, okay, yes, you are going to pick me up, or no, you're not, and can expand, condense, connect, resist, be open, be armored. You know, all of these are different conditions that we can make. And Ed Billinchon was talking about it, where he was saying, you know, there was this ballerina who was larger than the others, but he loved working with her because although she was physically heavier, she was easier to work with, and he didn't get injured. He didn't risk injury the way he did with some of the lighter ones who couldn't blend with him and work with him and have that oneness in the connected structure with him. So there are different things than the weight. The physics doesn't change, but what we are doing with it seems to be still largely unexplored. I would agree. There's still so many mysteries. How does a tiny, tiny little Tai Chi master, 97 years old, do something where it doesn't even look like they're moving, and this much larger person goes up in the air and lands 3 feet away? I mean, I've seen it. I've had it done to me. And when you're being pushed like that, you don't feel pressure in the push. You don't feel anything. You just go.
And Steve, you're unmuted as well. Did you want to add something to
I
that?
would just want to add is that controlling the center of mass is the key to all biologic movement. And I'll make that as a statement, and I have no idea why I make that statement, but I know it's right.
So now you've got some more work to do to tell us why it's right. Graham, you're unmuted. Did you want to say something?
No, I'm just getting ready for the
Getting ready for the sponsors. Okay, so before I pass the mic to you for the sponsors, Lionel, I want to say fantastic. Thank you so much. Not just for your tea party today, but for the endless hours, for the dedication that you have put into creating the Tensegrity Wiki for all of us and for future generations. It's really a huge, huge gift to the world. So I will thank you on behalf of all of us here and others. This has been BioTensegrity Tea Party number 37, Tensegrity Wiki with Lionel Wolberger. And we are going to ask Graham to tell us a bit about the sponsors. Susan will ask you about next week. And then we'll finish with a toast.
Right, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Lionel, so much. The BioTensegrity Tea Party is an all-volunteer production of the Stephen M. Levin BioTensegrity Archive, and made possible in part through the generous support of our wonderful sponsors. We'll start with Handspring Publishing, who have been with us right from the very beginning, in East Lothian, Scotland. We have a wide range of authors and books suitable for the manual and movement therapy professionals. And they're offering a generous discount coupon to all those on the BioTensegrity Archive mailing list. In the same way, we have Chris Clancy's educational organisation, Embodied BioTensegrity, which without which this wouldn't be possible. Chris started this from the very beginning with the technical know-how. And Embodied Biotensegrity provides an excellent resource for those of you looking to learn more about biotensegrity. And they're offering a special discount to those of you attending on the Zoom. You'll find details in the chat. The great savings on Susan's upcoming course, Everything Moves, Experiential Biotensegrity. We're also sponsored by Artifact Pro of Madrid, Spain, who produce wonderfully constructed anatomical tensegrity models. And then we have the fasciahub.com, who are also responsible for the British Fascia Symposium of last year. And they produced a seminar a week ago on the pelvis, and there'll be more coming in January. So watch this space, the fasciahub.com.
And it was great, the seminar. I'll just jump in. I think it's still available for purchase for those people who want to watch it after the fact. Go ahead.
Right, that's right, Chris. Yeah. And last but not least is Integrated Biotensegrity in Alberta, Canada, who are holding a Q&A session following their course in the beginning of November with Lisa Babiak, Paul Thornley, and Rachel Tudor. So there's our sponsors. Do support them because they contribute so much to these tea parties.
Thank you, Graham. Thanks, Graham. Susan, what do we have coming up next week?
So next week, sorry, yes, I'm gonna. So next week we have Steve giving us a sneak peek of his latest incredibly comprehensive presentation. So you'll really be up to date on the state of the science. It's only going to be up on YouTube for 1 week. So we warn you now, plan and pay attention because it is very dense. You're going to want to go through it a couple of times. The week afterwards will not be live streamed on YouTube. It's just going to be a Zoom party. So if you want to be part of that, it's just going to be a social holiday event because it's our last event of the year. And you need to be on the Biotensegrity Archive email list, biotensegrityarchive.org, in order to get that registration link for the Zoom session. I'm also going to say, Cobalt had a question. Yes, the class is around my book. It's going to be 3 months long. So it's going to be a pretty intensive stroll through my book. And Cobalt has this idea, which I really like. So I guess we take our hands and we put them out to the edge of our, takes a little coordination, right? The left, the right, put them out to the edge of your screen, of your little cube. And then we're all kind of touching hands. Do you see? Palm to palm to palm to palm to palm, all around the world. That's pretty wild. Thank you, Cobalt, for that idea. I'm going to turn it over to Lionel for the closing toast.
This is a toast to all of you, wonderful explorers and thinkers, and the curiosity. Curiosity is wonder in action. I wish that you nurture your curiosity and go on to enjoy all your explorations.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you all.